Once again, a good guy with the gun, stop the bad guy with the gun. How many times is it going to play out before you people realize that this is the truth?
Police say it was an attempted robbery that backfired. The suspect chose the wrong victim, who happened to have a gun of his own and used it repeatedly.
A man in his 30s, he was shot 3 times in the back after attempting to rob another man.
The victim of the robbery pulled his own weapon and fired shots.
The shooter telling police he was walking when he was approached by a man with a gun, but he would also pull out a gun and fired at least 10 shots at the attempted robber, killing him.
The perpetrator of the robbery was inside of a vehicle that was parked on 70th Avenue, and there was also a female in that vehicle.
That vehicle was found a few blocks away on the 6700 block of North 17th Street, a Ford sedan with multiple bullet holes on the driver's side.
Personally, I think anyone in politics, any politician, any government official who does anything to unnecessarily prevent people from being able to conceal carry is evil. Because what you're saying is, in this situation, you would rather this guy be the victim of an armed robbery where the guy who was robbing him may or may not have killed him after the fact. You would rather him be a victim of armed robbery than being able to defend himself. And I say that because you have places like New York who literally had laws that made it impossible for regular people to conceal carry, but then made it possible for the elite to have a firearm or concealed carry permit. And that's why concealed carry laws are so important. That's why this last Supreme Court decision under Bruin, that's why that was so important. Because what it did is it forced these states, they forced them to allow people to be able to conceal carry and get their license. And that's why you have stories like this happening, because this individual had a concealed carry license. He followed the law. He was legal, but you're not going to praise him. You're not going to utilize him as an example. You're simply going to ignore it because you would rather us be victims of crime versus us being able to have a firearm to protect ourselves. You would rather him have to wait on the police who weren't there to save him. That's the type of world, that's the type of reality that these politicians want us to live in. So you people out there who are voting for these politicians, understand their goal is about controlling you. They know they can't control the criminals because the criminals are going to do whatever they want, but they are okay with that because criminals aren't affecting them. They live in their palaces in the sky. But you, they don't want you to have the gun. And they'll say this hoopla dream that if you don't have a gun, the criminals won't have a gun. Only a fool would believe that. And let's talk about magazine capacity limitations. This guy shot 10 rounds to deal with this guy. 10. So you want to tell me again how a magazine limitation would have benefited him if there were more than one people? At that point, if he was limited to 10 rounds, he'd be done. He would be able to do nothing about it. He'd just be a sitting duck. But in this particular case, essentially he got lucky. It was only one person. He didn't have to deal with anybody else. But you actually have anti-gun people who say things like, but the statistics say that the most common round count in self-defense shootings are 2 to 6 rounds. So we're going to relegate people to 2 to 6 rounds simply because most self-defense shootings fall, not even most, average self-defense shootings happen to be 2 to 6 rounds. Well, what about the situations like this where it's not 2 to 6 rounds and it's 10? Somebody who's in a situation that needs more than 10 rounds to protect their lives doesn't care what the statistics say because they are on the outside of that statistical average. And the most important thing right now is their life. So that's 100% the most important thing to them at that moment. And so this idea that you're going to limit me because the averages say you only need 2 to 6 rounds is ridiculous. But yet you have people actually making this argument and thinking they're making a good one. Now, at this point, my biggest problem that I have when it comes to concealed carry licenses in this country is reciprocity. Now, Philadelphia does have reciprocity with a large majority of states, but even their reciprocity is limited. And if you don't know what I mean when I say reciprocity, I'm talking about whether or not me as a Texas native, will my concealed carry license work in Philadelphia? And to a degree it will, but there are some restrictions. But there are other states where it won't work. So even though this person has an ability to protect himself in Philadelphia with his license, if I travel anywhere, my license may not work and I can't carry concealed. So the robbers can have a field day with my ass because I won't be able to carry a gun in these particular states. So people really need to keep that in mind when we start talking about progressing forward with these concealed carry laws. There needs to be reciprocity. It makes no sense that I can get a license to carry a gun in Texas, but my license isn't recognized in Philadelphia. But yet I have a driver's license in Texas, and that will allow me to drive in every other state in this country. So basically, I can have the convenience of traveling to different states, but when it comes to the importance of protecting my life, oh, no. That's not important enough. You can't utilize your thing that you have to protect your life in my state because you don't have the same license from my state. This is lunacy. Now, in one of my most recent videos, I talked about the fact that in my group chat, one of my friends was like, I've been held up at gunpoint multiple times, and it was the fact that I didn't have a gun is what saved my life because I didn't think I was Rambo and tried to draw down on somebody that already drew on me. Now, in this particular case, that's kind of exactly what happened. He was faster. He was able to get to his gun and shoot this guy faster than this guy could, even though this guy got the drop on him. Now, I'm not saying that's always going to happen and that's always going to be the case, but maybe he saw an opportunity and he took it. But the one thing that I will say about that is this. From a training perspective, you've got to practice your draw. And I mean, you got to practice your draw in all of the things that you decide to carry in, because a lot of times what people do is they'll walk out a door, put a gun on them and not realize that there is some impedance to their ability to get to their gun, or they carry a gun that's relatively small and don't realize that, oh, under pressure and under stress, I can't get to my gun fast enough. So it's really important for a lot of people to practice your draw. If you're going out for the day and you're putting your gun on you, get a couple 1 or 2 draws in just to make sure that all the clothing works. Because in this situation, if there was something that impeded his ability to get to that gun, he'd be done. He'd be done. And so he clearly and obviously was able to get to his gun quick enough to defend himself. So from a training perspective, we've got to always remember, you've got to practice your draw. You just have to. It's one of the most important things because it's honestly going to be one of the most likely situations as a armed citizen that you're probably going to encounter. And on top of that, you never really know who's watching you, because you can have the best gun you want. You can have the quickest draw, fastest draw in the East or the West. But if your situational awareness is shit and you don't know what's going on around you, you don't realize somebody's watching you and they get the drop on you, you're screwed. None of that matters. So always be aware of what's going on around you. Now, I know it's unrealistic to say be on red alert 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but sometimes we can find ourselves being a little too lazy with our situational awareness. And so we've got to start stepping that up and understanding that somebody's always watching you. Whether you believe it or not, someone is watching you, and they're watching you to determine whether or not you are a victim or not. So there are things that you can do that will demonstrate to those people whether or not you are a victim. Or you just have your head up your ass and you don't see what's going on, thus making you a victim when you otherwise wouldn't be. Now, earlier I talked about reciprocity. And for me, I travel a lot. So one of the things that I do whenever I know I'm traveling to a different state is I search whether or not I have reciprocity in any of those states that I might be going to, so I know whether or not my license is any good. And one of the ways that I do that, the way I do it is I go on USCCA. I know you guys hear me talk about USCCA quite a bit because I think it's extremely important to have a USCCA type membership so that you have access to concealed carry insurance. But as I always also point out, one of the things I love about USCCA is the fact that you get so much in the form of information and training and the wealth of knowledge that you can get from all of the other stuff that comes with the USCCA membership, which I think is almost just as important. Now, being able to go on USCCA's website and searching whether or not you have reciprocity, that's free. You can do that right now. So imagine something that is that valuable and has that type of information, how much information you will get with the membership on top of the access to concealed carry insurance. So for anyone out there who does carry a firearm, and I just did an interview with one of my followers who was actually in a robbery where he used a gun to defend himself. Now, fortunately for him, he was able to get away clean as far as any type of legal issues. Now, one of the things he did say was, I wish I did have some form of concealed carry insurance, because he said he got lucky in that after it happened, he probably said some things that he probably shouldn't have that could have got him in trouble just because he was under the stress of the situation as it happened. But if he had someone to call that would immediately put him in touch with the lawyer like you would get with the USCCA membership, things would have gone totally different in a good way. But he still made it out clean, so that's a good thing. But for those of you who are interested in what a USCCA membership looks like, I'm going to put a link in the description section of this video so you can go ahead and check it. Guns aren't political. That's why I need your help getting this message to spread on YouTube by clicking the thumbs up button, leaving a comment to let me know what you think of the video, then subscribing to the channel. But most importantly, click that bell symbol. For products featured in this video, click the links in the description.